My dear listener, have you ever wondered why, amidst so many, you are the one experiencing this stirring within your soul? Why, among multitudes, the hand of God seems to press gently yet firmly on your life, lifting, guiding, calling you higher? It is not chance. It is not coincidence. And since you were chosen for this, God does not elevate for vanity. He does not lift for applause. He lifts those whose hearts have been forged in fire, whose tears have watered the soil of humility, and whose obedience has echoed louder than their ambition. When God elevates you, it is not because you are the strongest, but because you are willing, not because you are perfect, but because you are surrendered. He is not calling you because you are ready. He is calling you to make you ready. And so I invite you now to listen with your spirit. Not merely with ears, but with the depth of who you are. There is a holy wind blowing through your life, and it whispers this: you were chosen for this. Now rise. That pain you endured, the nights where silence screamed louder than any voice, and the seasons where prayers seemed to return unanswered, all of it was not in vain. Though it felt like abandonment, though it seemed as if heaven had closed its ears, the truth is that those very trials were your training ground. God does not elevate without preparation. He does not commission a soul without first refining it. Every ache in your chest, every tear you wiped alone, every moment you chose faith despite fear, was a brick in the unseen foundation He was laying beneath your feet. While others may have appeared to move ahead, to rise in favor or success, you were being drawn inward and downward, not to be buried, but to be planted. There is a difference, and it matters deeply. A seed planted in darkness is not forgotten. It is incubated. And in that soil of silence and surrender, your roots were growing deep enough to carry the weight of what is coming. In your trial, you learn to trust God not just for His gifts, but for His presence. You learn to seek His face when His hand seems still. That is no small lesson. Many only cling to God when He blesses, but you remained even when blessing was withheld. That perseverance has power. You were not being punished, you were being prepared. Because elevation without foundation is a collapse waiting to happen. But God, in His mercy, would not allow you to rise until your character was fortified by obedience, by patience, and by hiddenness. You were being taught endurance, not for your past, but for the path ahead. And now that He is lifting you, it is not sudden. It only appears sudden to those who did not see your struggle. To them, this might look like a promotion out of nowhere, but to heaven, it is the fulfillment of a long and deliberate process. Pain teaches what comfort never can. It humbles, it sharpens, and it clarifies. Wait. In your hardest days, you discovered what mattered most. You found out who God really is. Not just the God of miracles, but the God of mystery. You learned to walk with Him when the road was dark, when the light was dim, and when your questions outnumbered your answers. This intimacy, born in affliction, is more precious than gold. It was in the shadows that you became strong, not strong in the eyes of the world, perhaps, but strong in faith, strong in compassion, strong in resilience. And God watched all of it. A single moment missed, not a single sigh ignored. He saw how you forgave when you had every reason to stay bitter. He saw how you chose quiet integrity over loud approval. He saw how you kept going when quitting would have been easier. Now, He is elevating you, not to reward you like some distant ruler handing out trophies, but because you are ready. Not ready in the worldly sense, with credentials and accolades, but ready in the spiritual sense. You have been emptied enough to be filled. You have been broken enough to carry others. You have been quieted enough to hear His voice above your own. The training ground of pain has not weakened you, it has refined you. It has built in you a capacity to handle more, not for your sake, but for the sake of the ones who will come after you. You know the terrain of suffering, and so you will walk with others through theirs. You are not rising to escape pain, you are rising to carry purpose. Let no one, including yourself, mistake this elevation as random or undeserved. It is divinely timed. It is God's response to the surrender you lived when no one applauded. It is heaven saying, now, but even now, as the lifting begins, Do not forget what the valley taught you. Do not despise the process that shaped you. For the higher you go, the more you will need the strength formed in those low places. The trials were not a detour. They were the very road, and in them, you became not just someone who is blessed, but someone who can carry blessing with grace, with wisdom, and with unwavering trust. You were trained in fire to shine in the dark. You were tested in silence to speak with power. That is why God is elevating you now. Because you are not only ready, you are rooted. It is not the one who shouts the loudest that heaven hears, but the one who kneels the lowest. In a world that prizes noise, image, and spectacle, divine elevation works on an entirely different scale. God does not scan the stage to find his next servant. He searches the secret place. He does not listen for the roar of pride, but for the whisper of surrender. The world may applaud those who demand attention, those who advertise their strength and achievements, but heaven moves for the quiet heart that bows in secret, the soul that chooses humility, even when no one is watching. You are being lifted now, not because you raised your voice, but because you lowered your heart. You chose the posture of submission over the platform of self. And that in the kingdom of God is greatness. You were never overlooked by God. Though others may have ignored your effort, bypassed your wisdom, or discounted your presence, the one who sees in secret was watching. Every act of obedience, every unseen sacrifice, every moment you chose character over convenience was noted by heaven. You didn't need to push to the front because you trusted the hand that orders the seasons. You didn't need to build your name because you were anchored in his. God is not impressed by volume. He is moved by virtue. You didn't have to shout your worth because you knew where it came from. Bosho. That trust, that quiet confidence, that inner stability, it's rare and it's holy. It's easy to assume that influence comes from ambition, that to be seen, you must strive. But true spiritual authority is given, not grabbed. The one who kneels in prayer receives more power than the one who demands position. Your strength has not come from status or speech, but from staying close to God when you could have chased after applause. And in doing so, you have proven something essential, that you can be trusted with more. Elevation in the kingdom is not about spotlight. It's about stewardship, and those who serve well in the dark will be called into the light, not for their own glory, but because they carry something that others need. You are being lifted, not because of your performance, but because of your purity. There is a sacredness in humility. It is not weakness, as the world defines it. It is strength under control. It is choosing to walk low when pride whispers that you deserve more. It is biting your tongue when slandered, turning your cheek when challenged, and trusting God to vindicate you instead of proving yourself right. You have done these things. You have taken the lower road not out of fear, but out of faith. You believe that God could lift you higher than you could ever lift yourself. That is not just belief, that is wisdom, and wisdom is a rare treasure in any generation. When others ran ahead, you stayed still. When others sought visibility, you pursued intimacy. When others announced themselves, you waited on God's timing. That posture has formed something precious in you. It has made you tender, teachable, and deeply aware of your dependence on God. And because of that, He can now trust you with influence that will not intoxicate you. You will not be tempted to worship the elevation, because your heart was anchored long before the lifting came. That's why this moment is different. That's why this promotion is sacred. Because it is not about proving yourself. It is about fulfilling a purpose that was planted long ago in the secret places of prayer and surrender. The loud often rise fast, but they fall just as quickly. The humble rise slow, but they last. And you, who have chosen the latter path, are now entering a season not just of visibility, but of divine responsibility. You are not being elevated so you can be admired. You are being elevated so you can serve. And because you have remained low, your voice will now carry weight. Your words will be filled with authority, not because of charisma, but because of character. The foundation of humility makes your influence sustainable. Let the world clamor for attention. Let others chase recognition. You have chosen the better portion, to sit at his feet, to serve when unseen, to obey when it costs you. And now, heaven honors that decision. You are being lifted, not by force, but by favor. Because when God finds a humble heart, he does not ignore it. He exalts it in his time, for his glory, and for the good of many. God is not elevating you for your comfort, but for his kingdom. This truth cuts deep against the grain of human expectation. Often, when we think of being lifted up or blessed, we picture a life of ease, abundance, recognition, or freedom from hardship. But divine elevation carries a very different weight. It is not an escape from struggle, but an invitation into assignment. It is not a retreat into rest, but a call to responsibility. The purpose of your rising is not so that you can enjoy more, but so you can pour out more. You were chosen because God saw a heart willing to carry what others would avoid. You were chosen because, even when it was hard, you said yes. That yes may have been whispered through tears or spoken in trembling faith, but it was heard in heaven with the thunder of commitment. You accepted the call not because you were seeking personal reward, but because you believed in something greater than yourself. That is why God is lifting you now. There are many who long for elevation without understanding the weight it brings. Influence is not a prize, it is a burden. Those who are raised high in the kingdom are raised so that they may serve more deeply, love more sacrificially, and stand more boldly for truth. God does not call the proud into such places because pride poisons purpose. But you have shown a willingness to put purpose before preference. You have shown that when comfort and calling were at odds, you chose the cross. And in choosing the harder road, you have prepared yourself for the higher one. God is not giving you a crown so you can sit. He is placing one on your head so you can lead, guide, intercede, and impact the lives he is bringing into your sphere. This is not about you shining. This is about Christ shining through you. And that will mean carrying burdens you did not ask for, facing challenges you did not create, and speaking truth into places that may not welcome it. But you have been trained in private for this public purpose. You have walked through fire so your faith could come out gold. You have waited through delay so that your soul could be purified from haste. And now, he sends you not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. He sends you because the field is ready and the harvest is great. Your elevation is not about luxury. It is about labor. You have been assigned a field, and now the tools of heaven are being placed in your hands. You are not going up so that you can finally relax. You are going up so that others can be raised through you. Your voice will now carry reach. Your presence will now carry weight. Wait. Not because you sought influence, but because you stewarded humility. You will speak and hearts will shift. Not because of your talent, but because of the authority that comes from obedience. God is lifting you because the assignment demands it. There are people waiting on the other side of your obedience. There are lives attached to your willingness to lead when it would be easier to stay hidden. This is why you were chosen, not to receive, but to release. Not to build your name, but to build his kingdom. Comfort is fleeting. It is small, self-focused, and temporary. But calling is eternal. It echoes beyond this life into the next. You could have settled. You could have taken the easier path. But deep down, you knew you were made for something more. You felt the holy discomfort that comes not from lack, but from potential. And in that tension, you chose surrender. You chose to be shaped, stretched, and refined. And now that surrender is bearing fruit. God is elevating you because you carry something bigger than yourself. And that something is not meant to stay hidden. It is time for it to be released, for the broken to be healed, the weary to be strengthened, and the hopeless to be restored. You are rising for their sake, not your own. Do not be afraid of the weight. You were made to carry it. You were formed in secret to withstand what's coming in public. And as you rise, remember the reason, the kingdom, not your kingdom, but his, not for your comfort, but for his cause. You were chosen for this because you said yes when others walked away. You were chosen because you see elevation not as a prize to keep, but as a platform to serve. And now, that service begins on a new level with new grace and greater reach. This is your calling, this is your moment. Rise not for ease, but for impact. The ladder to divine promotion is not built from fame, applause, or ambition. It is crafted from obedience, one act of trust at a time. Obedience is rarely glamorous. It often demands silence when you want to speak, persistence when you feel weary, and surrender when you long for control. But it is precisely this hidden obedience, this quiet, consistent yielding to God's will, that creates the conditions for elevation. You didn't get here by striving, you got here by saying yes in the small things. You walked in faith when there was no path. You obeyed the whisper of God even when it cost you comfort, reputation, or certainty, and that obedience has not gone unnoticed. Heaven marks every step made in faith. God sees every decision born not out of fear, but out of love for Him, for Him. Obedience is the soil where promotion grows, and your life has been a field rich with yielded decisions. It's easy to obey when the outcome is clear, but you obeyed when it wasn't. You followed God into places others avoided. You said a yes when others said a later or a never. You didn't wait for everything to make sense before you moved. You moved because He said to. That kind of obedience reveals something deeper than discipline. It reveals trust. And trust is the language of heaven. It is the proof that God can lead you without needing to explain everything in advance. You trusted Him when the cost was high. You trusted Him when the crowd was thin. You trusted Him when it felt like nothing was happening. And in doing so, you laid a foundation that could carry the weight of what's coming. Obedience refines a person in ways that success never could. Every time you said a yes, sir, to God, a part of your character was being shaped. You became stronger, not just in will, but in wisdom. You learned the rhythm of heaven, not the rush of man, but the slow, steady beat of divine timing. You didn't force your way forward. You didn't kick down doors. You knocked in prayer and waited for the right one to open. And that restraint, that ability to wait on God rather than grab for what you thought was yours, has made you trustworthy. Now, as God begins to elevate you, He knows your heart is tethered to His will. You will not run ahead. You will not veer off. You will walk with Him, just as you have always done, step by step, in obedience. Promotion is not a reward for performance. It is a recognition of readiness. And readiness in the kingdom of God is proven through obedience. God does not elevate based on talent alone. He elevates based on stewardship. What did you do with what He gave you? How did you respond when no one was watching? These are the moments that matter. And you, in your obedience, proved yourself not just capable, but faithful. Faithfulness in the little led to faithfulness in much. You didn't wait for a crowd to be consistent. You were consistent when it was just you and God. You were faithful when the work felt thankless. You stayed the course when the path felt lonely. And now, because of that track record of obedience, He is bringing you into more, not to test you, but to use you. There is power in being led by the Spirit rather than the spotlight. You didn't chase visibility. You followed direction. And in doing so, you've built something stronger than influence. You've built intimacy with the one who holds all things. That intimacy is what will carry you in this next season. It will protect you from the pride that often follows promotion. It will guide your steps when the pressure increases. Obedience taught you how to hear His voice, how to recognize His prompting, how to discern His pace. And now, as elevation comes, you will not be overwhelmed by it, because you know who brought you here. You know why you're being lifted, not to sit, but to serve. The promotion you're walking into is a continuation of your obedience, not the conclusion of it. In fact, greater levels of influence will require even greater surrender. The assignments will be weightier, the decisions more complex, the stakes higher, but you will not face them alone. The same God who led you through the valley is leading you up the mountain, and you will still walk with Him, not in arrogance, but in reverence. Because you know, better than most, that the only way up in the kingdom is down on your knees. You obeyed when it was hard. You obeyed when it was hidden. And now, as he elevates you, he does so with confidence in your character. This is not the result of ambition. This is the fruit of obedience. And it will sustain you, guide you, and protect you as you step into what comes next. Just as a seed must disappear into the earth before it bears fruit, so too were you hidden, not because you were forgotten, but because you were being formed. There is a sacred purpose in hidden seasons. They are not punishment, they are preparation. When God hides you, it is not to diminish you, but to develop you. You were not placed in the shadows so you could wither, but so you could root yourself deeply in truth, character, and faith. It may have felt like isolation, like being passed over or invisible, but what was happening beneath the surface was more important than anything seen by men. You were becoming. You were being stretched and strengthened, not in ways that others could see, but in the quiet work of the Spirit within you. God was building something strong enough to hold the weight of the calling that would one day come. And now that it has, it is not an accident, it is the appointed time. In hiddenness, God refined your identity. Without the noise of public approval or the distraction of applause, you learned who you were, not in the eyes of others, but in the eyes of your Creator. He stripped away the need to impress, the temptation to perform, and the pressure to conform. What remained was the pure, authentic core of who you were made to be. You were not being delayed. You were being defined. You were not being silenced. You were being sanctified. And now, as God lifts the veil and begins to reveal you to others, it is not so they can admire you, but so they can be ministered to through you. The pain of obscurity was not wasted. It was shaping you into a vessel fit for His use. People often chase visibility without understanding that public platforms without private preparation lead to collapse. But you did not chase. You waited. You didn't run toward spotlight. You remained in the stillness of God's presence. And in that stillness, you were filled with wisdom, clarity, and discernment. You learned to hear His voice more clearly than the voices of the crowd. You found intimacy with Him in the silence. You were faithful with what was in your hand, even when it felt small. You gave your best when there was no recognition. That kind of faithfulness is rare, and it is powerful. It is the kind of faithfulness that God honors with multiplication and increase. Now, as He reveals you, He does so knowing that you will not be swayed by praise, because your identity was forged long before anyone was watching. There is a difference between being displayed and being deployed. The world displays for applause, but God deploys for purpose. You are not being revealed so you can be admired. You are being positioned so you can make a difference. The wisdom, compassion, and strength you gained in the dark are now desperately needed in the light. Others are struggling through the very trials you have already survived. They are seeking answers you received in prayer, longing for peace you fought hard to find, hoping for guidance you now carry within. You are not just stepping into a new season. You are stepping into someone else's answer. What God did in private is now becoming public so that it can bear fruit in the lives of others. This is a holy unveiling. It is not about your promotion. It is about your purpose. It is not about recognition. It is about responsibility. God is not showing you to the world so that they will see you. He is showing you so they will see Him through you. And because you were hidden, you now have depth. Because you were quieted, your voice carries weight. Because you were still, you now move with intention. This unveiling is not sudden. It has been building, brick by brick, over years of surrender and quiet faithfulness. As you step into visibility, do not fear the light. You have been prepared for it. You are not stepping into something unfamiliar. You are simply walking into the fulfillment of everything God already built within you. You will not be overwhelmed by the responsibility because you have already carried it in secret. You will not be shaken by criticism or applause because your heart was rooted long before anyone noticed your fruit. You are not a shooting star. You are a sunrise, quiet, steady, faithful, and sure. And now, the time has come. God is revealing you not to elevate your name, but to establish His work through you. You were hidden for a reason. Now you are revealed for a purpose. The world may be just discovering you, but heaven has known all along. Elevation is not the end, it is the beginning of assignment. Too often, we misunderstand the moment we're lifted. We imagine it as a final reward, a place to rest, a symbol of having made it. But in the kingdom of God, elevation is not a throne of ease. It is a platform of responsibility. It is not a destination. It is an entry point. You are not being lifted so you can settle, but so you can serve. You are being placed where your influence can reach further, where your words carry more weight, and where your life becomes a beacon for those who are still navigating the valleys you've already walked through. God is not elevating you to escape hardship, but to enter into a greater calling, one that requires more from you, not less. The mountain is not where you rest. It is where your new mission begins. God has watched how you handled the little and now entrusts you with more. But with more comes greater demand, not just from the people around you, but from heaven itself, to whom much is given, much is required. This is not a punishment. It is a privilege. It means you are trusted. It means heaven has seen in you the character that will not bend under pressure, the humility that will not inflate with praise, and the endurance that will not fade when the journey grows longer. You are being lifted into visibility, not for luxury, but for labor. There are assignments waiting in places you've not yet stepped, and God is sending you as a vessel, filled and ready, shaped in the hidden place, now prepared for public purpose. As you rise, remember that the goal is never to stand above others, but to reach down and lift them with you. True greatness in God's eyes is measured not by how high you go, but by how low you're willing to bow to serve others once you're there. You are being given a platform not to speak louder, but to speak more wisely, not to take more, but to give more generously. Your elevation is an invitation to impact, to carry the burdens of others, to be a light in dark places, to offer healing where there is hurt and hope where there is despair. Your new position is not a pedestal, it's a pulpit, whether literal or metaphorical, from which your life will now preach even louder than your words. The people who will now look to you are not looking for perfection. They are looking for direction. They are watching how you walk, how you respond, how you serve, how you remain rooted in the same God who brought you up. And that is your greatest witness, not your success, but your surrender. The greatest testimony of your elevation will not be your achievements, but your consistency in character, your faithfulness in the small things, your continued dependence on God, even when others now depend on you. You are stepping into a season that will require more prayer, more discernment, more courage, but it will also be filled with more fruit, more fulfillment, and more of God's presence working through you to touch others. It is important to understand that elevation does not mean you leave behind your past struggles. In many ways, you will carry those experiences with you, but not as weights. They will become tools, stories, bridges to reach the people who are now walking the path you once did. Your pain becomes someone else's permission to heal. Your trials become their testimony. Your scars become proof that survival is possible, that grace is real, and that God is faithful. This is the holy responsibility of elevation, to use what you've been through to lead others to the one who brought you through it. Do not be surprised if the higher you go, the more you must return to your knees. For elevation is not a removal from dependence. It is a deeper immersion into it. The more influence you carry, the more you must lean on the voice of the one who called you. You didn't come this far in your own strength, and you will not be able to sustain the weight of this new level without constant connection to the source. But take heart. He who lifts you is also the one who holds you. You are not alone in this assignment. You are not carrying it all by yourself. You are walking with the same God who walked with you in the hidden seasons, the silent battles, the long nights. He is not placing you in this new role to leave you. He is placing you there to reveal himself through you even more. So rise, but rise with reverence. Step into your new season, but step with sacred awareness. Know that elevation is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of a new chapter, and you were chosen not for the applause, but for the assignment. This is not your moment to rest. This is your moment to lead, to serve, to give, to love. And in doing so, you will find that this elevation is not a reward for the past, but the beginning of a purpose that has only just begun to unfold.